Still have a Christmas tree over there. It's like my dad's house. Stuff stays up all the time.
Hello, and welcome to Straight Talk with Susan. I'm Susan Siegel, Yorktown Town Councilwoman. This is a program devoted to talking about Yorktown affairs, specifically with an emphasis on what's happening at our town board level. And who better to be my guest than one of the newspaper reporters that actually covers the town. And today's guest is Rick Pezzullo, editor of the Northern Westchester Examiner.
How you doing?
Thanks, Rick, and thanks for coming by. As I've said in the past, this is totally unscripted. Rick can ask me kind of anything he wants. If I don't want to answer, I will just say, go on to your next question. I just would like to call attention to one of my key websites. I have 3 different ones, but the most important one, I think, for all viewers is CIYinfo.org. On that website, I have summaries of town board meetings and planning board meetings, including the ones that are not televised. So you can follow it by meeting date. You can follow a topic such as Costco or the proposed Crumpound Terraces or what's happening at Staples Shopping Center, new proposals for redevelopment at Lake Osceola Beach. So I encourage you to visit that site and just keep abreast of the specific topics that are of interest to you. And during the program, you'll see my contact information flashed on the screen. The email is susan@yorktownny.org, and you'll also have the phone number with my extension at Town Hall. Rick, now it's up to you.
Right.
What's on your mind today?
I can attest to those websites are very helpful, even to somebody like me. Who sometimes I can't get to all the meetings, and there's a lot of factual information, so people should actually go there.
And I have to say, and no criticism meant, because I know how busy you are because you cover so many different towns. The reporters don't cover the planning board.
Yeah.
And I'm basically the only one there from, quote, the public, who does write about it. And I have found it helpful. Just the other day, I was looking back to the Mount Kisco Medical Group that was going through the approval process in 2012, and somebody raised an issue about the rising level of Lake Osceola and how it was impacting on her property. And what was the blockage? And I remembered that they talked about that in 2012. So I was going back and looking at my own notes as to what was said in 2012. Yeah, because
the planning issues tend to drag on sometimes for several years, and you forget how they evolve, they change a lot. So it's planning board is a tough beat to cover.
It is.
But let me ask you about a subject that was kind of a buzz in Yorktown this week. It wasn't on the town board level, but there was a lot of people talking about Trader Joe's coming into the town and looking at, I don't know where they were looking, but looking at different locations. How does a town board or a councilwoman play a role in either encouraging a business to come, or have you heard from a lot of residents that a Trader Joe's is something that is needed or wanted, or how do you approach that kind of thing?
It's a good question, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. Right. And I wrote something recently in the paper, and thank you for printing that. We don't have a magic bullet. The town can't say, the supervisor of the Chamber of Commerce can't just call up and say, hey, Trader Joe or Christmas tree store or your favorite restaurant, please come into Yorktown.
That's what it seems what happened. In this case, from what I'm reading, it sounds like somebody from the chamber, whether it was the president or whoever, invited them to come to the town and maybe just give them a tour of what's available. That's what it seems like to me from what I can gather.
It's recently, within the past couple of weeks, I've spoken to 2 commercial realtors, and I asked them the question, what can the town do? Can Yorktown do anything more? And basically the answer was, you've done what you can do. The most important thing was the zoning. So we have, certainly the Food Emporium is zoned for that. We can expedite the approval process if you're coming in with something brand new. It needs a site plan. And I started that in 2010 when I was supervisor. We now have what's called kickoff meetings between the planning director, the town engineer, and the environmental consultant that he's involved in this. And so they meet jointly with the applicant very early on and identify the issues. The memos are all, and the reviews are all done jointly, so you don't get 3 separate pieces of paper and 3 different kind of comments. So we can expedite it. Also, once you get your approval, working with the building department when you need a building permit, you actually have to show all your architectural details, working with them to expedite it. What we can't do is tell Trader Joe, come to Yorktown because this is great. My feeling is if Trader Joe has certain criteria that they're looking for, size, location, certainly the demographics of whatever they determine is their region. Obviously, their market is beyond Yorktown Heights. It has to meet their requirements. Okay, so that's the first factor. The second factor is what the rent is. The town board can't tell a landlord what to rent for. Right. And it's no secret that for some landlords, they make more money by keeping their space vacant. I mean, it's a fact of life. So that's up to the landlord what to do.
Is there a special zoning for supermarkets, or are they treated like any other commercial establishment? The only reason I ask that is because, like where the Staples Plaza is, the best plumbing site and the former, what was it, Bed Bath & Beyond, or whatever that location was, they've been vacant for a long time, and they seem like sizable locations for such a, because I know there was a supermarket years ago where Staples is. There used to be one when I first moved, when I was younger, there was actually a supermarket where Staples was. This is going way back.
I remember White's.
It was right at the corner.
Really?
Yeah, I remember because...
was that a Wallbounds?
I think it might have been a Wallbounds.
That's right.
So there was a supermarket there at one
Wallbounds,
point. But I just wondered, are supermarkets treated any differently than any other one? Or
it's a question of space. I think the Staples Shopping Center is Zone C1, which is a kind of general shopping center.
Right.
Okay. So it would be, a supermarket would need a certain size. They're not going to fit into a store along Commerce Street. Right. The downtown area is what's called C2, and those are smaller lots.
Right.
And then you've got C3, which is a broader commercial zone. And that's what Costco is going in as. And so I think that would accommodate a supermarket. So it all depends. So if a store wants a supermarket, and I have no idea what size Trader Joe, is, because I have to be honest, I've never shopped in one.
The one that I've seen, I think there's one on Central Avenue in Scarsdale or that area. It seems like it's about the size of Turco's.
All right.
That type of size.
That would have to fit in. Then Food Emporium would be a reasonable size. The Staples has 2 vacancies. There's Best Plumbing and Bed and Bath.
Right.
I think they're adjacent.
Yeah, they're right next
so
to
that could obviously, be made. I don't think Turco's would fit into Friendly's, the old Friendly's place. So, but if that's where the town could always tweak a zoning code. If somebody came in and it didn't fit. Many years ago, the place, I think it's called Bounce, the party place where they have those big inflatables and things, they wanted to move into the old Penny Saver building on Front Street. When that zone was created, nobody ever conceived of a Bounce place. So they just amended the zoning code to allow for that specific use. So that's where the town board can do these things. So that's the main function. Many years ago, an owner of one of the neighborhood shopping centers had a vacancy, and he told me that a tattoo parlor wanted to come in. He didn't want that in, among his mix of stores. So the town can certainly help. And I encourage the chamber in what they're doing, the outreach, and we'll see if it's Trader Joe or some of the other stores. But the bottom line is, it's a decision between the business or the corporation and the landlord. 2 of my favorite restaurants in Yorktown have gone out of business. Maybe I didn't patronize them often enough. I
was going to say to you, like, because obviously the town gets a certain amount of revenue from commercial establishments, and maybe if they're vacant, you get the same amount. I don't know how that works.
We do. If it's vacant for a long enough time, and then the owner, the assessment on a commercial property is based on the income. So if they have a significant amount of vacancies, their income goes down, and then they apply for a tax certiorari.
I'm just wondering how concerned you are that slowly but surely, in the Heights area specifically, there's a lot of vacancies. You got the Friendly site. I'm not sure about the Chinese place, if that's still
They
open.
got approval to subdivide, to create 2 small retail in the front, but they're not proceeding with it.
Are they open still? Or?
Oh, yeah, the restaurant's still
Well, you have
open.
the Friendlies, you've got the, what was it, the Finnegans that just, is it Finnegans that just
Yes,
closed?
I've been told somebody is coming in
and
there.
then you have the beer and soda
Soda
place. You know,
Another one store I patronize.
Right, I mean, they're all kind of in that same little area. So I'm just wondering, you know, how much of a concern is that to you as a council person? Like how that, you know, looks. You know, you don't want to have too many empty storefronts in the same area.
It is a concern.
Yeah.
I was told, say I was a customer for the beer and soda place. We drink a lot of club soda in my house. And we recently went down to the one in Mohegan, and we kind of loaded up.
Right.
And we were talking about this, and he said the lease expired, and the landlord wanted more rent. It just wasn't economically viable for the owner. So the tenant has no control. And as he was loading up my car, I said, I hope you own your building. And he said yes, otherwise he couldn't afford to be there. So that's something the town just can't control. I don't want to use the word greed, but if a landlord just wants to charge more.
Well, I just wonder if, like, you know, a lot of times in a town or wherever, there'll be a magnet kind of store that brings in other stores. You know, I mean, like, I'm sure people on 202 are hoping Costco will maybe help fill some of the empty spots.
Absolutely.
Or, you know, and I know the supervisor's been pushing this Depot Square project, which is in the Heights area, a little bit off the path there, but I mean, do you think something like that could be a magnet to bring in other businesses in that area, or is that not the type of thing that you think would attract new businesses?
I think Costco definitely will attract to Route 202, and commercial brokers have told me that.
Yeah.
And that's why the owner of the Staples shopping center, Erstad Biddle, is very upbeat about Costco.
Right.
There's absolutely no question about that.
Yeah.
So that will help fill up the vacancies. And the only other major piece of vacant land then along 202 will be the state land parcel further
Well, you
down.
still have the old mill there that's been vacant for several years now, which used to be a very
Nice
good restaurant
restaurant.
way back in the
Way-
day.
way back.
I remember. And then if you go down even a little bit further, there's some empty. I think it used to be a car dealership next to the diner. They use it now to park cars. But
That's right,
That's
yeah.
empty. And even down further, there was an old car dealer that's empty next to the Savannahs. There's a little. There are a few pockets of empty things along that area.
And the general thinking is when Costco comes in, it will create more traffic, and then they will be coming east or west on 202 and see the other stores. The Savannah's is an interesting case in point. For the longest time, it was Sunshine.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
And then I don't know how long it was vacant, and then another store came in.
It was a
children's
thing.
furniture store. That didn't work out. And then Savannah's, who I think they're the same family or owners
as Little Sorrento.
Little Sorrento's, they had a business plan. That's what they wanted, so they took over and remodeled that building. It's like I've been told it's another restaurant type that's coming into to where Finnegan's is. We're a capitalist society, and businesses they come and they go, and the town can't pick and choose to say we want this restaurant, we want that type of store, or we only want 3 pizza places in Yorktown, right? And if you want to come in the 4th, sorry, you can't. If you're a French restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, yes, we'll allow you. The town doesn't have the authority to do that. So what we do is, again, we can tweak the zoning ordinance. We can certainly work with them to, especially if it's some applicants come in and they're very sophisticated and they have architects and engineers who know the whole process. They know exactly what to do. Others don't know the process, and it's easy to not do the right thing, not get the right pieces of paper in it, just delays it and so forth. We can expedite that and help them and walk them through it with checklists and things like that, and that would would help. So that's the major role, and we can constantly boost the town and say what a good thing we are. And then of course there's something like the Trail Town Initiative that I've been working on, where we are trying to get publicity about it. I just sent a whole bunch of our new maps down to a club of MIT alumni in New York City because I learned that they do hikes into Westchester.
Wow.
So I sent them that, and next time you're planning a hike, come here.
Yeah,
another friend sent me something about a bicycle group in New York City. I said, how many copies of our map would you like when you bring people up on the North County Trailway? And then they're going to see the restaurants. They'll stop for ice cream or a sit-down meal.
It's almost like the town maybe needs a kind of a tourism person or something, you know what I mean, to kind of pump up the town or let the people know what's going on, you know, with the hiking trails or what stores or whatever other. There's so much going on, you know.
What's Yorktown's assets? The trails are one. Yorktown residents don't even know about most of our trails. They know about the North County Trailway. We have historic houses, and once a year the Historical Society does a tour, and there's a group of people who like that. The Yorktown Stage Productions. I don't know how widely Barry Liebman advertises, but I'm sure his audience goes beyond Yorktown. So, and as far as restaurants, we have some more specialized restaurants. Himalaya is a very unique type of a restaurant, so that would obviously draw people in. I don't know another Italian restaurant would draw people in unless it was very, very super. So yes, we have to take the assets we have and promote them, and that's what the Trail Town Committee, you know, is trying to do. One, by doing the brochure to let people know as they're coming up and down the trailway, this is where you can stop.
And maybe also if the Jefferson Valley Mall ever redevelops as they're proposing to do, you know, maybe that would also give the town a boost too.
Absolutely, because they come to the mall and then they'll see other stores.
Where's that? Do you know? Is that anywhere?
I was just going to say, I spoke to the building inspector the other day, and I said, like once every month or two, I ask him. They have not picked up their building permit yet.
So they don't even, I mean, they actually have a plan though, like in place, right, or no?
They have a plan.
But it hasn't come before the planning board yet?
Oh, no, that's all been approved.
That's all approved, all right. So
2013.
So it's really just up to them now to, because I see talk about vacancies. They have a vacancy every day. It seems like every time you go in there every week, there's a different store closed.
And whether they are purposely doing that to create space that they want to lease to other tenants, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there's a limit to how much a private business wants to share their business plan with town officials. But the town did everything it could to accommodate the requests of the mall people in terms of parking changes, signage, landscaping. I think they got almost anything they wanted because we want that mall to succeed.
Right.
And then it switched over with Simon. We didn't know at the time that Simon was planning to sell its B-level malls. So we're waiting.
I guess to wait and see with that. Just a quick question about Costco. I know it's before the planning board. They made a couple of minor changes, I guess, to it. Is the town board's part of that done, or is there anything left? There's nothing left the town board has to do with?
No, town board's done. It's coming back. It's expected to be on the planning board agenda Monday, July 13th. They're just reviewing the site plan and to double check that all of the required mitigation measures that the planning board wanted in its seeker finding statement have been addressed, and some of that might have required some tweaking of the site plan. So that's what the board is looking at. There was some concern about the height of the lighting poles. They want a variance. The code says 16 feet. They want 25 feet. Fewer poles giving more light because it's higher. The planning board has to deal with that.
They still need some kind of, is it DEP or some other agency has to do something? They still have to get involved, right?
Absolutely.
So that could slow up the process a little, right?
That could slow up the process. Field Home was a perfect example after the planning board went through all of its review and stormwater and the whole kit and caboodle. DEP said, no, we don't like that retention pond over there. Change it and move it over there. And so they had to then come back.
Are you concerned at all that perhaps, you know, because Costco's a big chain or whatever, that if it drags on too long, that they may just say forget it and walk away? Yeah, I mean, you've seen that you've seen that occasionally.
I don't think so, because I think that they're really at the end. And I think Costco team has worked closely with DEP and DEC all along. So my hope is that that the DEP review won't take long because they have been involved in a lot of the critical issues. So it's not as if once it finishes in Yorktown, then it's going over to DEP for totally first look. They have been very involved, and Costco has made changes in its plan. The only thing that could slow it up is the lawsuit. That could slow it up.
Yeah, because I think I recall, I think it was Mr. Capolini went, I don't know how long ago, it was a year ago, saying I think by this time they were hoping to already be building.
They were.
So here it is, already mid-2015 and nothing's going on.
But some of those delays were the Costco delays. It was almost a year between when they had the draft environmental impact statement and then came in with the final. So that was their delay. And then there were significant improvements to the plan. And I have to credit the involvement of local residents, who it came out with a certainly a much better stormwater plan. And stormwater is critical on that 202 because it tends to flood south of Route 202. So they have made improvements, and they work closely with both DEC and DEP on that. So I think they're in it because they know it's one thing if the town and the community oppose something, then you say why fight? But they know that this town board and the planning board, they want this plan. And yes, there is some local opposition, but I think they know the community wants it. So fingers crossed.
Were you surprised by the lawsuit that Smart Growth brought at that stage in the game? And do you think there's any validity to any of the points that they brought up? Or, I mean, I don't even know if you've read it.
I kind of looked at it. I don't think so. I think the stormwater issue they have addressed. And if DEC and DEP are satisfied with stormwater, then I think who else are you going to question? I think the gas station permit, the town board had the ability to waive certain requirements. Again, this gets back to one of your earlier questions about what the town can do for development. We can tweak the zoning ordinance. You can't just do it constantly because then you're doing what's called spot zoning. You're really doing a favor, for specific businesses. But when it's in the public interest and there's a rationale for making the changes, you can do that. Yes, the other gas station owners are going to be hurt. There's no question about that, but this is our capitalist society. When I had a book publishing business, and I was publishing hardcover books, in the early 1990s, and guess what? Then the internet came along, and all the information that I was selling in my book was now available for free online. So I had to change my entire business model. We don't make buggy whips anymore. Think of the people who had to go change, way back in the beginning of the 20th century when Mr. Ford made his car.
That'll just force all the other gas station owners to, I guess, lower the prices, or maybe more traffic. They'll get more. Everybody would win anyway. Who knows?
I don't know. And some people will say, "I'm not waiting online," or "I don't want to be a Costco member because I don't shop at Costco or at BJ's." And I don't mind paying 10 cents more a gallon because I'm going to be in and out. So that's a preference. Just the way some people will say, I'll go to Mitchell Hardware in town because it's convenient, they're helpful and whatever, and I'm not going to go 15 minutes over to Home Depot to save $1. That's a very individual decision. And I think there will be customers for both, for both levels.
Now, I'm switching gears a little bit. I think since I was on last, the sober home is open, and have you heard anything from anybody, any neighbors about anything going on there? Or are they kind of just quiet like anything else? And so now I know there was a discussion at the town board the other day about a new zoning change to the zoning code, which I know you've been heavily involved in. Can you tell people what that was about? And because I know the supervisor voted against it. He said we don't even have, it's like a proposal of a proposal. It's really nothing at this point. But what exactly was the action taken there, and what is the intent?
The issue that surfaced during the Compass Westchester discussion was it was coming in for a special permit as a convalescent home. There were two issues. One, what's a convalescent home? And two, there were no special requirements for a special permit for a convalescent home. There's just some very general standards. So there were two issues. I felt very strongly from the very beginning, long before I was even running for office, that a sober living residence was not a convalescent home.
Right.
Convalescent home, to me, is a 50-year-old term that doesn't exist. Right. We have nursing homes, rehab facilities, assisted living. So that's it. But the courts decided that it was a convalescent home.
Right. And the ZBA
said it was a convalescent home, which is a very, very broad definition. In fact, the zoning code equates nursing home and convalescent home as the same. So what I did, working with two board members, Vishnu and Greg Bernard, and also with a meeting with the building inspector, we crafted a new special permit, and we're calling it a community care facility because we were cautioned not to limit it exclusively to a sober living home. So it's something, and I thought you might be asking a question, so I brought a definition, okay? Well, first let me say what the intent of this legislation is, because that's the most important thing. And it addresses the concerns that residents have, because commercial for-profit businesses are allowed in residential homes, but again with a special permit with special conditions. So the intent is to preserve the residential character of single-family residential neighborhoods, while at the same time making provision for the temporary housing needs of persons with special needs and disabilities, and in accordance with the Federal Americans with Disability Act and the Fair Housing Law. Because as we learned throughout the Compass Westchester thing, we do have to abide by those two laws. Right. So what this is, this would be a facility located in a single-family dwelling unit that provides temporary transitional housing for people recovering from disease, illness, disability, after they have completed an in-house program at a licensed healthcare facility, but they're not ready to go back to the original living arrangement. And so they will stay in this facility, which will be staffed 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, no medical services or health services, and it's not licensed by the state. So it's broad, and it covers, I don't know what else.
So if another sober living residence came in, it would come under that.
Come under this. And then we have specific requirements relating to parking. We say that, and again, this is all in draft, that to preserve the residential character of a neighborhood, we regulate the lot size. It can't be smaller than a certain size. No more than one such facility within a half a mile. Parking requirements, landscape buffering, things like that. I think it says a maximum of 15 people.
Right. Different
guidelines that at least when somebody comes in as an applicant, they know what can be done. The reason it's in draft form now is because I couldn't get the town board to talk about the specifics of it.
Right.
I said, this is my draft, and we have a lot of questions. I want input from you. But we never got past, frankly, because of the opposition of Supervisor Grace.
Why did the board have to vote on a draft, though? Like, why couldn't they just put this together and just refer it out as a, why did it have to be voted on?
We could have done a draft law, but I felt I wanted more feedback. The town board, some of the board members had never commented. For example, I say in this draft, no more than one such permit within a half a mile. Well, maybe the board wants it a quarter of a mile, 3/4 of a mile, 1 mile. I wanted to be flexible, and I wanted the board to discuss this, but we couldn't get to that point because the supervisor always blocked us at the definition stage, and we never got down to the details. This way, at least we'll get some of the comments back from the other advisory boards. If they want to make changes, we can do that. Then we'll put it in local law, advertise it if 3 members of the board want to pursue it, and then we'll advertise it for a local hearing. And I think we're getting to the end. So this is still in draft form, and I encourage even the general public to comment on it, because I think this is something that needs to be done, and I'd like to move forward. It's kind of gotten no place for a long time, but I think it's important to preserve the residential character of our neighborhood and comply with the law. So again, thank you very much for coming.
Thanks.
And I don't know, there's probably a lot of other topics that we never got to, but we'll do. If people have any questions, just let me add about the Halleck's Mill sewer situation. I encourage them to email me at susan@yorktownny.org. There's possibly some good news that's coming, and maybe we will have more news. But it's complicated, and the finances are complicated. So just email me and we'll fill you in.